The North Sea wind whips across the moat, carrying the faint tang of salt and scorched earth. Glücksburg Castle squats like a forgotten sentinel, red brick walls etched with centuries of salt, its turrets piercing a sky the color of slate. Ivy clings to the stone, defiant, as if the war's fury had spared this relic of Prussian pomp. But the scars are there. A shattered gargoyle lies in the courtyard, felled by some stray shell months ago. Allied jeeps rumble over the drawbridge, their tires crunching gravel, headlights slicing through the mist like accusatory fingers. The war in Europe ended 11 days ago. Hitler's bunker is ash. Berlin is rubble. Yet here, in this coastal fastness near Flensburg, the true audit begins. Not of cities bombed, but of illusions shattered. A convoy halts. Doors slam. Officers in olive drab emerge, briefcases in hand, faces gaunt from rationed sleep and the weight of victory's paperwork. Among them, Paul Nitze, 38, economist by trade, interrogator by necessity. Tall, angular, with wire-rimmed glasses that magnify eyes like a hawk's, cold blue, unblinking. His suit hangs loose, tailored for Wall Street boardrooms, not this damp exile. He adjusts his tie, a ritual tick, as if precision in dress could impose order on chaos. Victory tastes like newsprint, he thinks. Recalling the headlines smuggled from London, VE Day riots, Churchill's gravelly triumph. But Nitze seeks no parades. He hunts patterns, the invisible ledgers that turned men into machines and machines into graves. Flanking him, John Kenneth Galbraith, 37, the economist poet, all 6'8" of him slouched against a jeep, pipe clenched between teeth. His tweed jacket strains at the shoulders. He looks like a rumpled professor dragged from Harvard's stacks to audit Armageddon. Galbraith exhales smoke, a wry curl that mocks the gravity. Paul, if this Speer's as clever as they say, we'll be here till the Russians redraw the map. Nitze doesn't smile. Clever men leave trails, John. We're here to follow them. His voice is measured, a New York baritone honed in treasury debates, not foxholes. No vengeance in it. Just the quiet insistence of a man who once crunched numbers for Roosevelt's New Deal, now repurposed for the Reich's autopsy. George Ball, 36, rounds out the trio. State Department sharp with a diplomat's impatience and a prosecutor's glint. Shorter, stockier, he paces the courtyard, glancing at his watch. Forrestal wired again last night. Get the data, Paul. If we crack their production riddle, we end the next one before breakfast. Ball mimics the Navy Secretary's clipped tone, but his eyes betray the fatigue. Shadows under them from weeks chasing Nazi ghosts through Bavarian cellars. James Forrestal's name lingers like a specter. The undersecretary, soon-to-be secretary, had handpicked Nitze for this, the United States Strategic Bombing Survey. Not for bombs dropped, but for why they landed at all. Understand the break. Forrestal had urged in a DC briefing room thick with cigar haze, and you forged the peace. Nitze nods to Ball, pocketing a worn notebook. Its pages are already dense with sketches, factory yields, rail bottlenecks, the arithmetic of attrition. A German major, surrendered, collar unbuttoned, approaches, heels clicking on cobblestone. He salutes stiffly, eyes downcast. Herr Nitze, Minister Speer is prepared. In the library, guards are posted. Nitze inclines his head, no salute returned. Minister. The word tastes sour like defeat disguised as title. Albert Speer, Hitler's architect, armaments wizard, the man who conjured steel from rubble, kept the Wehrmacht fed on fumes and fervor. Captured days ago in the Harz Mountains, unresisting, briefcase brimming with charts. Speer, they said, was different. No rants, no cyanide vial, just a quiet surrender, as if the numbers had finally tallied against him. The hall echoes with footsteps. Marble floors veined like lightning, chandeliers draped in dust sheets. A grandfather clock ticks in the corner. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Its pendulum a metronome for the dead. Faint light filters through leaded windows, painting the walls in jaundiced stripes. The air smells of mildew and pipe tobacco, undercut by the acrid bite of extinguished candles. Nitze pauses at a portrait. Frederick thirsts stern in ermine, gazing down as if appraising the intruders. Kings built castles to defy time. Speer built them to defy defeat. Galbraith lingers behind, murmuring, "This place reeks of faded glory, fitting for an empire of blueprints." Ball snorts softly. "Save the poetry, John. We've got 7 days to gut his miracle." 7 days. That's the allotment, a week to dissect the Reich's industrial entrails. The survey's mandate is clinical, questionnaires, graphs, the cold calculus of why 2.7 million tons of bombs hadn't ended the war sooner. But Nitze senses more. In the jeeps en route from Flensburg, he'd pored over preliminary reports. Speer's dispersal factories, slave labor networks, the alchemy of turning desperation into dorniers. Not magic, Nitze had noted in his journal, pencil scratching like a scalpel. Just men betting against math. They ascend a spiral stair, boots muffled on threadbare carpet. Whispers from aides. Speer's cell is sparse, a cot, a basin, his documents under lock. No chains, the Allies want truth, not theater. At the landing, a door creaks open. The library awaits. Bookshelves tower like sentinels, leather spines cracked from neglect, Goethe Clausewitz treatises on siege warfare. A long oak table dominates, scarred from centuries of counsel. 2 chairs face off across it, one high-backed throne-like, the other plain, utilitarian. A single lamp casts a pool of amber, shadows pooling in the corners like spilled ink. Outside, the wind moans against the panes, a low dirge. Albert Speer sits in the high-backed chair, 40, poised as a patrician at Salon. Tall, lean, with the architect's hands, long-fingered, precise. His suit is rumpled but pressed, tie knotted with care. Graying hair swept back, revealing a forehead broad as a blueprint. He sips from a tin cup, ersatz coffee, bitter as regret, eyes fixed on a window, where gulls wheel against the gray. No tremor in his frame, no hunted glance. Composure as armor, Nitze observes, stepping into the light. Speer turns slowly, rising halfway. Gentleman. His English is accented but fluid, Oxford polished from pre-war travels. A faint smile, not ingratiating, merely acknowledging the ritual. I trust the drive from Flensburg was tolerable. The roads are unforgiving these days. Nitze sets his briefcase on the table with a thud, the sound echoing like a gavel. He doesn't sit yet. Galbraith and Ball take positions against the shelves. Observers, not actors, Galbraith lighting his pipe anew, smoke curling like a question mark. Ball flips open a folder, pen poised. Minister Speer, Nitze begins, voice even, or should I say Herr Speer? Titles seem redundant now. He slides into his chair, glasses catching the lamplight. The table between them, a battlefield of polished wood, inked with ghosts of debates past. Speer settles back, fingers steepled. Albert, if you please, we are both men of figures, are we not? No need for the theater of rank. His gaze is steady, appraising Nitze like a rival draftsman. He sees the calculator in me, Nitze thinks, not the conqueror. A guard lingers at the door, rifle slung, but Nitze waves him out. This is no tribunal, Nuremberg awaits for that. Here in this book-lined cell, truth emerges from concession, not coercion. Nitze opens his notebook, fountain pen gliding across the page. Session 1, 0900 hours. Subject cooperative. Baseline queries. Galbraith clears his throat, breaking the hush. We've read your files, Herr Speer. Impressive. From Autobahns to V2s, quite the portfolio. Sarcasm edges his drawl, but Speer doesn't flinch. Architecture is adaptation, Speer replies, voice smooth as marble. The Reich required efficiency. Bombs fall, we build deeper. Ball leans forward, impatient. Efficiency, that's the word. Tell us about the dispersal program. How many factories underground by 44? Speer pauses, glancing at his own stack of papers, yellowed charts, dog-eared ledger salvaged from the chancellery. He selects one, sliding it across, a graph of rivet counts, climbing like a fever chart. Over 12,000 sites, concrete hardened against 500-pounders. We moved the lines, Messerschmitts from Regensburg to forests, tanks from panzers to barns. Production rose 20%, even as the raids intensified. Nitze studies the graph, tracing lines with his finger. Peaks and valleys, Me 109 output spiking in 43, dipping sharp in 44. Familiar contours, he muses, like Detroit's assembly hum, but inverted, scarcity's siege. Impressive improvisation, Nitze concedes, pen scratching. But improvisation implies limits. At what yield did the workers falter? Speer's eyes narrow fractionally, the first crack. Workers? They were dedicated. The Führer's vision sustained them. Vision. The word hangs, heavy as incense. Nitze leans in, the lamp's glow etching hollows in his cheeks. Outside, an Allied truck growls past, its engine a guttural reminder of logistics unchained. The clock ticks, tick-tock. Cigarette smoke from Galbraith's pipe swirls, acrid, clinging to the curtains. Nitze flips a page. Let's dispense with visions, Herr Speer. We're economists here, not priests. Tell me, at what point did you realize you were no longer building weapons, only statistics? The question lands like a depth charge. Silence blooms, thick and unyielding. Speer's fingers tighten on his cup, knuckles paling. The gulls cry beyond the glass, a mocking chorus. Galbraith shifts, pipe forgotten, Ball's pen hovers, ink beating. Speer exhales slowly, setting the cup down with deliberate care. His gaze meets Nitze's, not defiant, but dissecting. He weighs the cost of candor, Nitze notes, the pen's nib poised. In that pause, empires teeter, not on battlefields, but in the ledger's unforgiving balance. The clock chimes the half-hour, tick-tock, smoke eddies, a veil over unspoken ledgers. Speer straightens, voice regaining its polish. Statistics, Herr Nitze? They were lifelines, but if you seek the fracture, perhaps we begin with the skies. Nitze nods once, a concession to the dance. The interrogation unfurls, not with shouts, but with the slow uncoiling of facts. Charts spread across the table like autopsy slides. Fuel allotments in litters, bomber sorties in arcs of red ink. Speer speaks of miracle shifts, 16-hour days in blacked-out halls, riveters racing the dawn. His tone is lecturing, almost proud, as if recounting a cathedral's nave, not a war machine's gut. Yet Nitze listens beyond the words. Each figure whispers of strain, coal halls halved by rail strikes, alloys diluted to frailty. He built with shadows, Nitze scribbles, the pen's scratch a counterpoint to the wind's howl. Galbraith interjects dryly, artful, Herr Speer. But art doesn't fly without avgas. Speer smiles thinly, nor does it without will. Ball presses. Will against what? Your own estimates, 6 million tons short by 43. The afternoon wears on. Light slants golden through the panes, gilding the dust motes like spent tracer rounds. Coffee refills come cold, sandwiches arrive on tin plates, gray bread, cheese like chalk. Speer eats sparingly, eyes flicking to the charts as if they might vanish. Nitze probes deeper. Slave labor quotas, the Eastern workers funneled into foundries. Speer's replies are precise, numbers recited like litanies, but his pauses lengthen, silence is pregnant with the uncharted. Guilt as geometry, Nitze thinks, glancing at the clock, 1600 hours. The room grows stuffy, smoke layering the air like fog over the moat. Outside, soldiers drill in the courtyard, boots stamping cadence, a rhythm of rebirth. As dusk bleeds the sky crimson, Nitze closes his notebook. Enough for today. Tomorrow the oil lines. Bring the May 44 logs. Speer nods, gathering his papers with architect's grace. As you wish. Clarity is its own confession. The trio rises. Galbraith stubs his pipe, murmuring to Ball. He's a sphinx in pinstripes, but sphinxes crack. In the hall, as guards escort Speer away, footsteps echoing down marble veins, Nitze lingers by the portrait. Frederick's eyes seem sharper now, judgmental. We've conquered the land, Nitze reflects, but the mind's forts endure. The wind rattles the casements, carrying the sea's murmur, endless, indifferent. Back in the jeep, rumbling toward Flensburg's billet, a commandeered inn with blackout curtains and bully beef suppers, Galbraith breaks the quiet. First blood, Paul? That question hit like a flak burst. Nitze stares at the passing pines, silhouettes against twilight. Not blood, just the outline. Tomorrow, we fill it in. Ball chuckles from the rear. Forrestal loved the prelims. Illusion indexed at 120% capacity. The jeep lurches over a crater, headlights probing the dark. Stars prick the canopy, more than Berlin's searchlights ever caught. Nitze's mind drifts to the States, Detroit's forges glowing, Willow Run spitting B-24s like clockwork. They never saw it coming. Not the scale. In the castle's hush, as Speer lies on his cot, staring at cracked plaster, statistics he called them, the clock tolls 10. Its echo fades into the night, a pulse syncing with the distant hum of Allied convoys, trucks laden with girders, not grenades. Rebuilding symphony. Nitze at a scarred desk, lamp pool in yellow. His report begins. Day 1, subject evasive on human factors. Production claims inflated 15% per internal memos. Pencil scratches, scratch, under the lamp's buzz. Galbraith snores in the next room. Ball pores over maps downstairs. A knock. An aide slips in a cable. Forrestal, proceed. Truth is the next front. Nitze folds it away. Front's end. Questions don't. He extinguishes the light. Darkness claims the room, save for the faint glow of his cigarette, ember flaring as he inhales. Smoke curls toward the ceiling, tracing invisible vectors. History's final battle wouldn't be fought with guns, but with questions. Sunlight fractures through the leaded panes, casting geometric shards across the oak table, prisms of pale gold on yellowed paper. The air is sharper today, laced with the brine of low tide and the faint, oily ghost of last night's diesel from the courtyard trucks. The grandfather clock resumes its vigil, tick-tock, Tick-tock, a binary heartbeat syncing with the scratch of Nitze's fountain pen priming its nib. He arrives first, briefcase snapping open like a trapdoor, spilling fresh notebooks and a stack of OSS intercepts. Coded dispatches on Speer's armaments miracle, the alchemy that squeezed 40,000 aircraft from a Reich choking on its own smoke. Nitze straightens his tie, the silk whispering against his collar. Day 2. Dissect the dispersal. Map the veins. His reflection in the window, hollow-cheeked, the economist's gaze dissecting the gulls beyond, wheeling in different spirals. Sleep had been fitful. Dreams of ledgers bleeding red, not ink but blood, tallied in Berlin's craters. Galbraith and Ball filter in behind, the former with a thermos of real coffee smuggled from a Red Cross drop, the latter clutching a manila envelope of aerial photos. Regensburg before and after, skeletal frames etched in white phosphorus blooms. Black brew for the Inquisition? Galbraith offers, pouring into chipped porcelain. Steam rises, curling like factory exhaust. His amusement is a shield, the tall man's detachment, Nitze thinks, masking the economist's quiet revulsion at numbers that forgot to count the dead. Ball waves it off, spreading the photos. Look at this, Paul. Schweinfurt 43, ball-bearing plants pulverized. Speer claimed a rebound in weeks. Bull or brilliance? Nitze traces a crater's rim with his finger. Both. That's what we'll carve out today. The door creaks. Guards usher Speer in, his footsteps measured, echoing off the shelves like a metronome. He carries no briefcase today. Hands empty, as if unburdened, but his eyes betray the inventory, shadowed, appraising the room's new geometry, the photos like accusations pinned to the air. Speer nods to the trio, settling into his chair with the grace of a lecturer mounting a podium. Gentlemen, I see you've brought visuals. Fitting, the eye confirms what the ledger suggests. His voice is steady, laced with that cultured lilt, but Nitze catches the micropause. A breath held, then released. Armor refitted overnight. The lamp flickers as a cloud scuds the sun. Shadows leap across Speer's face, hollowing his cheeks. Nitze opens to a blank page, pen poised. The oil logs, Herr Speer, and the dispersal manifests. Let's start with the miracle you engineered. How does one forge swords from scraps when the anvil's on fire? Speer leans forward, elbows on the table, fingers interlacing like structural beams. He exhales a controlled sigh and begins, not with defense but with diagram. From memory, he sketches on a loose sheet, a hasty flowchart, factories branching into shadow sites, arrows denoting rail diversions, worker flows. The pencil, borrowed from Ball, scratches urgently, lines bold and architectural. The miracle? No mysticism, Herr Nitze. Adaptation. By February 43, after the Hamburg firestorm, 40,000 souls, yes, we dispersed. Not retreat, but redistribution. Krupp's Ruhr plants? Fragmented into 200 cellars, each a forge in miniature. Output, up 37% in tanks alone. Galbraith sips his coffee, brow arched. Cellars, charming. And the ventilation? Rivets don't breathe fire without bellows. Speer's sketch halts. He adds a loop for air shafts, precise as a draftsman's flourish. Improvised. Bellows from bicycle pumps, if memory serves. But the key was the women, Frauenarbeitsdienst. They threaded wiring in bunkers lit by carbide lamps. 16 hours, yes, but output. He taps the chart where a line vaults upward. Me 109s from 1242 to 3000 by 44. Even as your heavies hammered, Nitze watches, unblinking, the pen's nib hovering like a scalpel over flesh. He speaks of them as rivets, not ribs. The room warms with the sun's insistence, sweat beads on Ball's forehead, a single pearl tracing his temple. Outside, a gull's cry pierces the glass, shrill, accusatory. Nitze leans in, voice a probe. Impressive ascent, but the base? Your labor pool, 7 million by Goering's count, half from the east. How many cells collapsed under the weight? Speer's pencil pauses, lead kissing paper. His eyes flick to the window, where the moat mirrors the sky's steel. Weight is relative. The Eastern workers, they were allocated efficiently. Barracks adjacent to lines, rations calibrated to output. We lost 20% to typhus in 43, logistics of scale, but recouped with poles from Warsaw. By autumn, synthetic rubber from IG Farben compensated the shortages. The Führer's directive, totaler Krieg, total effort. Totaler, the word hangs, Teutonic and totalizing. Ball interjects, flipping a photo, a skeletal figure amid bomb craters captioned Auschwitz Auxiliary, 1944. Effort like this? Your manifests show 1.2 million transferred that quarter. Calibrated how exactly? Calories per cog. Speer's composure holds, a faint tightening of the jaw, like stone under strain, but his reply flows, a river channeled. Humanely, within constraints. I argued against the excesses, memoranda to Bormann, unread. But the math, without them, no Panther tanks for Kursk. We built 6,000 that summer, Herbal. Your Shermans numbered twice that, but ours fought on half the fuel. Nitze nods, jotting, deflection via comparison. Classic. The clock chimes 11. A guard delivers sandwiches, ham thin as propaganda, bread stale as surrender. They eat in ritual silence, the chew of crust punctuating the pause. Smoke from Galbraith's relit pipe eddies, veiling the photos, softening the craters to mere etchings. Speer picks at his portion, gaze distant, as if recalibrating a lost elevation. Resuming, Speer unfolds the tale like a blueprint unrolling. The Commando Speer, his cadre of young engineers, the Berlin boys he calls them, scouting barns in Bavaria, caves in the Harz. We tunneled under the Ittersee Dam post-breach ironic, and housed U-boat pens there. Diesel assembly, 80% dispersed by Ploesti raids, output held at 1,200 tons monthly. His voice quickens, animation flickering, pride, denial, as he gestures, hands shaping invisible vaults. Imagine, a cathedral of steel, Herr Nitze, not rubble-bound but root-deep. Bombs glanced off, we emerged stronger. Speer winces, imperceptible, but Nitze catches it, a hairline fracture. The jets' ambition outpaced alloys. We prioritized fighters over fuel, but the miracle persisted. V2s, 3,000 launched from mobile sites. Middleworks granite halls, unscathed, producing 20 a day by March 45. Galbraith chuckles, dry as dust. Mobile sites, hay carts with Heinkels. Poetic. But poetry doesn't pierce P-51s. Your kill ratio's inverted after big week. 44, was it? Our boys came home. Yours didn't. The afternoon slants shadows long across the table, the lamp now auxiliary buzzing faintly like a dying flak battery. Speer counters with data, a memorized litany of tonnage, coal from the Ruhr, 80 million tons 43, tungsten rerouted from Portugal, 500 tons black market. We improvised alloys, zinc for zinc, molybdenum from scrap. The Führer's faith, it fueled the forges when the coal ran low. Faith, again the invocation. Nitze sets his pen down, the clink echoing. He slides the OSS intercepts forward, redacted cables, Speer's own signature on labor decrees. Faith is factor. But let's quantify. Your internal memo, July 43 to Hitler, production at under 20% capacity but morale at 40. What broke the spirit, Herr Speer, the sirens, or the spreadsheets whispering defeat? Speer's fingers drum the table, once, twice, a architect's tick, measuring stress points. He meets Nitze's gaze, blue on blue, a duel of draftsmen. Morale, a variable like humidity in concrete. We countered with broadcasts, Goebbels tonics, and bonuses. Extra bread for quotas met. But yes, the spreadsheets, they lied least. By Stalingrad's echo, we knew the arithmetic tilted east. Ball presses, voice edged. Tilted? Your Ardennes push. 44 December, 700,000 men, but tanks on fumes. Forrestal's got the manifests, 80% of your panzers sidelined for oil. Miracle, my ass. Speer straightens, voice fraying at the edges. Not anger, but the strain of sustaining a span too wide. The bulge was desperation's geometry. Probe the seam, force the breach. We nearly did, but your lines? Endless. Supplies from sea to shining sea. Our miracle was finite, yours oceanic. Nitze absorbs it, mind-charting vectors. German peaks as spikes, American as plateaus. Endless, engineered. He's confessing in code, he thinks, the pen resuming its whisper. The room thickens with smoke and spent words. Outside, Allied trucks growl, unloading crates stamped USAID, rebuild. Hammers ring distant, clang clang, nailing the future's frame. As 4 o'clock tolls, Speer gathers his sketch, folding it with care. Efficiency, gentlemen. That's the defense. We built not despite the fire, but through it. Nitze closes his notebook, the snap a period. Through it. Until the fuel guttered. He rises, signaling adjournment. Galbraith stubs his pipe. Ball pockets the photos, murmuring, oceanic. Cute. But oceans drown. In the hall, as Speer's footsteps recede, echoing diminishing, Nitze pauses by the clock, its face implacable. Miracle unmasked, a scaffold of sand. The wind shifts, carrying the sea's salt, mingling with the library's must. Victory's scent, not gunpowder but graph paper's dry promise. Nitze at his desk, lamp aglow, transcribing, dispersal. 12K sites, 37% tank surge. Labor, 7 ember, 20% attrition. Cracks, morale 40%, fuel phantom. The pen falters, he rubs his temples, the ache of unseen bones. A cable arrives. Forrestal, oil tomorrow. Break him on the ratios. Galbraith lounges in the doorway, thermos empty. He's good, Paul. Cells ruin like Renaissance, but you're the eraser. Nitze exhales smoke from his own cigarette, first of the night, watching it coil toward the rafters. Erase? No, expose. The billet hums with voices downstairs, aides debating Doentz's holdouts, the Russian probe at Lübeck. But here in the quiet, Nitze hears the unspoken, Speer's voice, proud yet frayed, charting a colossus on crutches. Night deepens, stars wheel beyond the blackout. In the castle, Speer paces his cell, fingers tracing invisible lines on the wall. Vaults unbuilt, spans unspanned. Efficiency, he whispers to the dark, but the echo replies, exhaustion. He spoke of efficiency, but Nitze heard exhaustion. Rain lashes the panes like shrapnel, a staccato rhythm blurring the North Sea horizon into a smear of gray fury. The library feels smaller today, walls pressing in with the damp, bookshelves bowed under the weight of sodden air, the oak table slick with condensation from the thermos. Galbraith hauls in like contraband. Steam from the coffee mingles with the musty reek of wet wool. Nitze's suit clings uncomfortably, a second skin of restraint. He shakes droplets from his hat, placing it crown down on the sideboard, then opens his notebook to yesterday's notes. Dispersal, scaffold, not stone. Fuel, the unseen fracture. The pen's nib, freshly inked, gleams black as bitumen. Day 3, the black vein. Nitze's mind is a ledger already. Columns of consumption rates, rows of refinery yields, drawn from survey prelims smuggled from London. Plesty, that Romanian jugular, bombed to slag in 43. Synthetic plants at Luna, hammered flat by Lancasters. But the true kill shot? May 12, 1944. Operation Tidal Waves echo when the 8th Air Force's heavies turned the skies into a funnel of fire choking the Reich's arteries. He glances at the clock, tick-tock, insistent as a fuel pump priming. Galbraith slumps into his perch by the shelves, pipe unlit, thermos cap twisted off with a hiss. Paul, if today's the oil autopsy, expect blood, black and bitter. His drawl carries a philosopher's detachment, but his eyes, sharp over the rim of his cup, betray the economist's hunger for the pivot point, where industry bent, then broke. Ball arrives last, folder sodden, shaking out maps like battle flags. Luftwaffe fuel graphs, intercepted from Himmler's horde, lines plummeting like dive bombers. Forrestal's breathing down the wire. Crack the crude, Paul. Japan's next. Same math, different meridian. He spreads the charts, fingers leaving wet prints, red arcs of raid paths, blue veins of pipelines severed. The door groans, Speer enters, coat beaded with rain, his hair slicked back as if by design. He carries a slim ledger today, his personal, salvaged from the Chancellery's vault. Ilbericht, oil reports bound in cracked leather, pages warped but legible. No flourish in his gait. The architect moves like a man measuring a fault line. A tempestuous dawn, gentlemen, fitting for what flows beneath. He sets the ledger down with a thud softer than thunder, but the sound reverberates, syncing with the rain's tattoo. Nitze gestures to the chair. Speer sinks into it, folding his hands, fingers long, now trembling faintly, like a compass needle quivering north. The lamp hums to life, its bulb a weak sun casting oily halos on the table. Nitze leans forward, voice a probe through the downpour. The miracle's fuel, Herr Speer. Yesterday, you sketched the forges. Today, the fire. Your logs show 2.1 million tons imported 42, Romanian bounty. Then, evaporation. Walk us through the drought. Speer opens the ledger, pages whispering like dry leaves in wind. He traces a column, monthly allotments scripted in his own hand. Benzin, 300,000 tonnen, my 43. The drought, a siege, not a snap. Plesty 1st, your 8th August 43. 44 heavies down, but our fields burned, 500,000 tons lost. We shifted to synthetics, Fischer-Tropsch at Scholven, cold to liquid wizardry. By winter, 70% domestic. The Führer called it Wunderöl, miracle oil. Galbraith snorts, pouring coffee that steams like refinery flare. Wonder indeed. Your own memos pegged it at 40 octane, horse piss for jets. How many FW-190s coughed out over Normandy? Speer's finger halts on a dip. May 44, the line shearing vertical. He exhales, breath fogging the page like frost on a gauge. Coughed? Many. But we rationed. Luftwaffe at 60%, Panzers 20%, the rest, improvisation. Vegetable oils from presses, wood gas generators on trucks. Endurance, Herr Galbraith. Not excess. Endurance. Nitz's pen scratches. Illusion indexed. Ration as resolve. Outside, thunder grumbles, a distant barrage, lightning veins the sky, illuminating the moat's churn. Ball slides a map forward, Ploesti's grid, craters circled in red. Improvisation? Cute. But May 12th, your Pulitz plant, B-17s, 1,500 tons dropped. Output 0 for weeks. Luftwaffe sorties, 300 that month, down from 2,000. Talk me through the 0 hour. Speer's composure phrase, a thread pulled, the weave tightening elsewhere. He flips to a flagged page, frantic annotations, Hitler's marginalia in red pencil. Mare synthetic. May 12th, the fulcrum. Your heavies, spivs in Piccadilly, hit the hydrogenation plants at Zeitz and Leuna simultaneous. Escorts overwhelmed our 109s, flak chewed the skies, but precision, yours was surgical. Tracers like hornets. Towers toppled, cracking vats like eggshells. 18,000 tons capacity gone. Synthetics fed 80% aviation. That day the heart stuttered. Nitze absorbs it, mind graphing the cascade. Refineries as nodes, fuel as flow, sever one, the graph collapses. Not the bombs, the bottleneck. He probes gently, pen circling the date. Stuttered. And the body, panzers idled in France, U-boats tethered in pens. Your Ardennes gamble, 6 months later, tanks on strings. How many halted that dawn, Herr Speer? Give me the arithmetic. Speer closes his eyes briefly, reciting from memory's vault, a litany etched in flame. Arithmetic. Merciless. Pre-raid, 1,200 operational aircraft fueled for ops. Post, 400, ration to reconnaissance. Panzers, 5,000 in theater, but 3,000 immobilized by week's end. Generators starved, tracks seized. The East Front, Tigers brewing diesel from potatoes but yields at 10%. We declared Kraftstoffnot, fuel emergency, June 1st. Workers walked, morale's graph inverted. The rain intensifies, drumming like rivets on tin, tap, 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 a counterpoint to the clock's tick-tock. Galbraith lights his pipe at last, the match's flare etching Speer's profile. Hollows deepened, the architect's brow furrowed like a blueprint under erasure. Smoke spirals, acrid as alkylate, veiling the maps. Ball presses, voice honed impatient. Emergency, your memos scream apocalypse. To Goering, aviation extinct by July without imports. And the imports? Convoys sunk, Rommel's desert ghosts drinking sand. Faith couldn't fly the Me-262s, could it? Speer's hands part the ledger like a wound, revealing a graph. Bars crumbling, labeled Monatliche Verbrauch, monthly burn. Faith flew the men, Herr Ball. But the machines, no. The 262s, 1,400 built, 300 flew. Engines starved mid-climb, pilots bailed over the Elbe. I pleaded, tanks to Romania, scavenge the Caucasus. But the Caucasus was ash. By July, reserves, 200,000 tons total. Your bombers burned more in sorties. Nitze nods, the motion economical, his glasses fogging faintly from the steam. Pleadings as patterns. He slides his own chart across. American yields, 18 million barrels monthly from Texas alone. Pipelines like aqueducts unchallenged. 200,000 tons. A thimble against the tide. And the illusion? You dispersed factories, but not the thirst. May 12th wasn't a raid, it was revelation. When did you log the end, Herr Speer? The point where statistics became elegy. Silence swells, heavier than the storm's hush between claps. Speer's fingers trace the plummeting line, nails scraping paper, a faint scritch under the rain's roar. His voice drops, frayed thread to whisper. July 20th. The bomb plot, Stauffenberg's shadow. I was there in the wolf's lair, briefing fuel for the counteroffensive. Post-blast, as blood pooled. I recalculated. Projections. Luftwaffe grounded by September, Panzers static by October. The Führer raved, Wunderwaffen, but the ledgers lied no more. That night, I drafted the memo. Kaput. Not spoken, but written. Endurance's end. Kaput. The word lands like a dud shell, hollow, resonant. Ball leans back, exhaling sharp. Galbraith's pipe droops, ash flaking like spent flak. Nitze's pen halts, ink beating uncaptured. Outside, lightning cracks, thunder rolling like a He-11's dying drone. The room reeks of wet earth and revelation, coffee soured, smoke stale. The afternoon drags, rain unrelenting, turning the session to slog. Speer unfolds the denouement. Contingency plans aborted, Einsatz zur desperation, suicide squadrons on wood gas, slave details siphoning canals for a drop. We stretched the phantom, 1,000 tons blended from coal tar and captured British stocks, but arithmetic, it accretes. Your production, 300,000 aircraft total. Hours, 120,000. The ratio, 2.5 to 1. Not will. Watts. Factories in Ohio outbuilt our faith. Nitze counters with queries surgical. U-boat diesel dives aborted. V2 launches grounded mid-countdown. Each answer peels the myth. Speer's voice steadying into confession's cadence, eyes distant as if viewing the burn from orbit. He's mapping his own ruin, Nitze observes, the pen resuming. May 12, Fulcrum. Ratio 251. Faith's fuse, lit by ledgers. As 5 o'clock tolls, muffled by the gale, Speer closes the ledger, its snap a valve shut. The heart stopped, yes, but the body twitched till April, a zombie's arithmetic. Nitze rises, gathering charts slick with damp. Twitch or testament. Tomorrow the totals, the war's true balance. Galbraith stubs his pipe, Ball rolls the maps, murmuring to Nitze, got him, fuels the ghost in the machine. In the corridor, rain sluicing the arrow slits, Speer pauses under guard, gazing at the storm-lashed sea. Kaput, he echoes inwardly, the word a tide pulling at foundations. Footsteps recede, clop-clop on marble swallowed by the downpour. Nitze at the desk, lamp defiant against the gloam, transcribing. Oil, 200K tons reserve, July 44. Sorties, 80%. Pivot, 12th May, synthetics severed. Rain patters the roof like Morse, defeats code. The cable crackles in, Forrestal, ratios gold. Press the capacity. Galbraith sprawls on the cot, thermos drained. Arithmetic Paul, cold as the North Sea, but it warms the peace. Nitze lights a cigarette, ember flaring against the wet dark, smoke curling like vapor trails. Warms? Or warns? The billet creaks under the wind's assault, maps curling at edges. Downstairs, aides huddle over radios. Potsdam whispers, Truman's shadow lengthening. But here the audit endures, numbers etching the future's fault lines. Night falls hard, rain a relentless audit. In the castle's depths, Speer lies wakeful. Ledger clutched like a talisman, the phantom's scent, bitter, unburnt, clinging to his dreams. In the end, it wasn't bombs that killed the Reich, it was arithmetic. The storm is broken, leaving a brittle clarity. Sunlight slants through rinsed panes like a searchlight probing ruins, etching long shadows across the table's grain. The air hangs heavy with the scent of sodden earth and drying ink, petrichor laced with the faint, metallic tang of rust from the castle's iron fittings. The grandfather clock ticks onward, tick-tock, its rhythm now a pulse of inevitability, syncing with the distant thrum of Allied supply planes, droning low over the North Sea, their bellies full of girders and grain. Nitze arrives early, sleeves rolled, tie loosened, a rare concession to the room's lingering damp. His notebook sprawls open, pages a battlefield of annotations. Yesterday's fuel fractures graphed in hasty blue lines, ratios circled like targets. Day 4. The balance. Totals, not tactics. The survey's core directive burns in his mind. Quantify the why of endurance, the how of collapse, not for tribunals but for treaties yet inked. Forrestal's latest cable, tucked in his pocket like a talisman. Numbers are the new Navy. Arm the peace with them. He spreads fresh charts. American production arcs, pilfered from ordnance files. Liberty ships at 1,000 a year. B-24s rolling off Willow Run like sausages from a grinder. Galbraith enters whistling a faint jazz riff. Take the A-train, ironic for bombed rails. Thermos in one hand, a dog-eared canes in the other. Paul, if Speer's got any illusions left, today's the solvent. I've crunched the prelims, US GDP war swollen to 300 billion marks equivalent. Theirs, peaking at 150, then nosedive. His pipe remains cold, the economist's amusement tempered by the ledger's chill. Ball follows, arms laden with dossiers, interrogations from lesser ministers, their confessions a mosaic of mendacity. Goering's flunkies sang this morning. Speer inflated yields 25% for the Führer. Today's our scalpel, sliced to the sinew. He dumps the stack, pages fanning like spent casings, and lights a cigarette, the matches cutting the hush. Smoke blooms, acrid as overtaxed forges, veiling the window's view of workers in the courtyard. POWs turn pioneers, stacking crates under sergeant's bark. The door swings, Speer materializes, gaunt in the shaft of light, his ledger exchanged for a thicker tome. Gesamtarbeitsbericht, the Armaments Ministry's master ledger, its cover scarred as if clawed by doubt. Rain has left his hair unkempt, strands falling like fault lines across his brow. He carries no sketches today, only the weight of accrual. Gentlemen, the verdict session? Appropriate. Yesterday's phantom demands a body count. His voice holds, but Nitze notes the husk, polished veneer over hollow core. Speer claims his chair, the leather creaking like a stressed spar. Nitze gestures to the charts, his own and the invaders. The body, Herr Speer. Not corpses, but capacity. Your miracle met ours. Dispersal versus Detroit. Let's tally. Aircraft, armor, tonnage. No visions, just the vault. Speer opens the tome, fingers steadying on a spine cracked from frantic flips. He exhales, breath visible in the cool draft from the hall, and begins the recitation. Not defense, but disclosure. Tonnage first. Steel, 1942, 18 million tons. We led. By 44, 12 million, dispersed but diluted. Your figures. He glances at Nitze's charts, eyes narrowing. 30 million, unchallenged. Arsenals in Buffalo, foundries in Bethlehem, oceans apart, yet synced like clockwork. Galbraith leans in, Kane's forgotten. Synced how? Unions? No, innovation's leash off. Willow Run, 1 plant, 300 planes a month. Your Messerschmitt works? 5 sites, 200 total. The ratio whispers before it screams. Speer nods, a concession masked as calculation, tracing a column. Panzer IV Ostos, 5,043, 4th in 244. Whispers, yes. We armored 18,000 tanks total, Panthers, Tigers, the lot. But maintenance? Fuel famine felled half by bulge. Your Shermans, 50,000. Not superior, superior in surplus. We built for the blitz, swift, singular, you for the slog. Assembly lines that birthed hulls every 90 minutes. Nitze's pen glides scratch, inking the disparity. EUS 50K. Surplus as strategy. The light shifts, gilding the smoke into golden veils. Outside, a plane's drone crescendos, then fades. A liberator's shadow passing over the moat. Before D-Day, they knew, Nitze thinks, mind flashing to 43 briefings. Roosevelt's arsenal of democracy, factories fevered under FDR's fireside calculus. Surplus, the word's the wound. Your V2s, 5,000 launched, terrors tally, but our Norden bomb sites drop 2 million tons on your heads. How does one counter capacity, Herr Speer? With will? Or with more? Speer's reply comes measured, but the tone trembles faintly in his grip, a seismic tell. More. Always more. Aircraft, our peak, 40,000 in 44, FW-190s, 109s, the jets gleam. But losses? 30,000 to your Mustangs alone. You flew 100,000 sorties over the Reich that year. We managed 20,000. The ledger's verdict, your pilots returned. Ours? Fertilized fields. His voice dips, the architect's precision fraying into elegy, eyes flicking to the courtyard where figures toil. Fertilizers of a sort. Ball stubs his cigarette, grinding the butt like a grudge, and slides a dossier forward. Goering's yield fudges, stamped Geheim. Fertilized, poetic. But the fudges? Your ministry cooked the books, 20% phantom production for morale's sake. Admit it, by Anzio, you were auditing ghosts. Speer straightens, jaw set like rebar, but his gaze drifts to the clock's face, its hands creeping toward 3. Ghosts? No, projections. I briefed the Führer monthly. Herr Reichsminister, the lines lengthen. He countered with Wunderwaffen, the Me-163 rocket V3 supergun, Faith's Forge. But the numbers? Unyielding. Ships, our U-boats, 100 sunk, 800 built. Yours, 7,000 merchantmen lost, 10,000 replaced. The Atlantic? 1 in yards, not wolf packs. Nitze absorbs the cascade, his chart now a palimpsest. Overlapping arcs, German spikes brittle as icicles, American plateaus vast as prairies. D-Day's fight was the factory's fanfare. He probes deeper, voice a lancet. Yards, the unseen front. Your slave networks, 7 million hands churned under duress. Ours, 17 million in war plants, volunteers clocking overtime for war bonds. When did the truth tally, Herr Speer? The point where ideology bent to industry. The question hangs, a plumb line testing the span. Speer closes the tome slowly, thump, dust motes dancing in the sun's declination. Silence stretches, broken only by the clock's tick and a gull's distant keening. His fingers steeple, then part, revelation's gesture. Bent, shattered, September 43, post-Schweinfurt. I stood in the wolf's lair, charts under arm, briefing yields. Goering blustered. The Führer paced. I laid it bare. Herr Hitler, our output peaks but theirs. Exponential. He waved it off. Der Geist siegt, spirit triumphs. But that night, alone with the ledgers, I graphed your shadow. 100,000 planes by 45 projected. Ours, 60,000 max. The ratio, 1.7 to 1, widening. Not courage's call, capacity's claim. Galbraith exhales a low whistle through teeth. Exponential. Keynes would blush. Your multiplier was minus. We borrowed from tomorrow, you borrowed from bones. Speer meets the gaze, unflinching now, the frayed edge honed to honesty. Bones and brilliance. Underground, Middler birthed 6,000 V2s on slave backs. Dora's depths, 20,000 dead to damp and dynamite. Surface, your raid scattered us, but the core cracked inward. By Normandy, June 44, we fielded 150 divisions, U-90, but with air umbrellas unchallenged. Panzers rolled on tracks, your trucks on treads of endless rubber. Synthetic? We scraped 100,000 tons, you shipped millions from Akron. The afternoon wanes, light bleeding amber across the table, gilding the charts like framed indictments. Ball interjects, voice gravel. Endless, that's the epitaph. Forrestal's chewing cables. If we match this for the Soviets, assembly lines from Vladivostok to Virginia, the peace holds. Nitze nods, pen faltering for the first time, scratch into silence. Holds or hardens. He envisions the Pacific pivot, Japan's zeros outbuilt by Hellcats, 10-1. The atomic shadow looms, but here in this room the real fission, industry unchained. Epitaph. Fitting. Your Reich dreamed of 1,000 years on spirit's span, ours on steel's scale. When the ledgers closed, her Speer, who blinked first. Speer's eyes, shadowed by failing light, hold Nitze's. A mirror of minds, one victor, one vanquished. We all blinked, but yours saw further. D-Day was theater, the factories, the fortress. I argued relocation, whole industries to Bohemia, but too late. The arithmetic anted us out. The clock chimes 4, bells tolling like assembly horns. Smoke from balls, fresh cigarette swirls, tracing invisible flows, ore to armor, coal to carriers. Outside the planes return, a squadron's hum, vroom vroom, droning Salvation's score. Nitze closes his notebook, the snap of verdict sealed. Further, tomorrow the echo, the piece's blueprint. Speer rises, tome under arm, a pilgrim with his relic. Blueprint, may it span true. His footsteps echo in the hall, clop clop, fading into the castle's veins, guard shadowing like footnotes. Nitze at the desk, lamp alone beacon, expanding the chart. Totals, DE aircraft 120K, US 300K, tanks 50K, 88K, ships equiv, 1-3. The pen etches deep, gouging paper. A cable unfurls. Forrestal, capacity confirmed. Shape the doctrine. Galbraith perches on the sill, gazing at the sunset's bruise over the sea. You peeled him, Paul. Not a man, a mechanism, unwound. Ball paces, cigarette dangling, unwound for the wind-up, Cold War's first crank. Nitze extinguishes the light, shadows claiming the room. The billet murmurs, radios crackling Yalta's ghosts. He steps to the window, breath fogging glass, watching trucks convoy past, USA stamped endless as the ledgers. Capacity, the quiet conqueror. In the castle's hush, Speer pores over his tome by candle flame, fingers tracing the plummets. 1.7121, endless. The wick gutters, smoke tendril in guilt. Saw further, he concedes to the dark. But the echo replies, too late. The war wasn't decided by courage, it was decided by capacity. Dawn creeps through the casements like a cautious scout, painting the library in hues of tarnished silver, light pooling on the oak table, where charts lie spent, their lines exhausted as spent cartridges. The air is crisp, stripped of yesterday's smoke, carrying instead the faint, briny whisper of the sea reclaiming the shore. The grandfather clock, faithful sentinel, ticks its final cadence for this duel. Tick-tock, a metronome winding down. Dust motes drift in the beams, lazy as parachutes over Arnhem, undisturbed by the hush that follows revelation. Nitze stands at the window, hands clasped behind his back, gazing at the courtyard where Allied crews dismantle a flak tower, clang of wrenches on steel, a requiem for Reich defenses. His notebook rests closed on the table, its pages swollen with the week's harvest, ratios etched like fault lines, capacities charted as continents. The audit ends today. Not with a rest, but a cruel. Sleep evaded him last night. Visions of assembly halls in Detroit, endless belts birthing bombers while Berlin's bunkers birthed only echoes. Forrestal's voice, ghostly from cables. This is the doctrine, Paul. Build the peace on the bones of their balance sheets. Galbraith arrives first, thermos abandoned for a flask of bourbon, smuggled, contraband clarity. He slouches against the shelves, canes tucked under arm like a talisman. Last round, Paul. Speer's myth, intact as a bombed basilica, cracked but standing. His drawl softens the edge, but his eyes, sharp as hypotheticals, scan the room. Empty ashtrays, coffee rings like impact craters. Ball follows, briefcase bulging with transcripts. Stenographer's scrawl from the week, a verbal autopsy in triplicate. Nuremberg's lawyers are salivating. But this, he taps the stack. This is for the vaults, Cold War catnip. Soviets outbuild us in tractors, we pivot to jets. He lights a cigarette, the flick of his Zippo sharp as a salute, smoke curling toward the ceiling like a signal flare misfired. The door creaks. Speer enters unescorted this time, guards a step behind, a courtesy eroding. He looks diminished, the architect's frame draped in a suit now loose as a shroud, hair uncombed, eyes ringed with the ink of insomnia. No ledger today. His hands are empty, palms upturned in silent offering. Gentlemen, the seventh dawn. Have we balanced the books? His voice, once vaulted, now echoes hollow, polish worn to patina. Nitze turns from the window, gesturing to the chair with a nod, not warmth. The books balance themselves. Her Speer. Today, the closeout. Reflections, not recapitulations. What endures from the arithmetic? He resumes his seat, fountain pen uncapped, nib hovering like a diviner over dry earth. The light catches his glasses, flashing brief as a welder's arc. Speer settles, the chair groaning under unaccustomed defeat. He glances at the charts, his peaks dwarfed by American plateaus, and exhales, a sigh measured as a blueprint scale. Endures, the illusion's autopsy. I built cathedrals of capacity, dispersed, defiant. But yours, archipelagos. Factories not fortified but federated. Willow Run alone outproduced our Ruhr entire. His fingers trace phantom lines on the table, etching spans unspanned. The Führer's error, spirit as solvent for scarcity. Yours, scarcity dissolved in surplus. Galbraith sips from the flask, passing it discreet glug. The bourbons burn a counterpoint to the chill. Surplus as sacrament. Roosevelt's New Deal turned to war welds. 17 million hands, no chains. Your miracle? 7 million, shackled. The ledger indicts the lash before the lack. Speer meets the gaze, unflinching, but Nitze notes the micro-tremor, a hand steadying on wood. Indicts? Yes, I see it now, in retrospect's rear view. Dora's tunnels, V2s from viscera, 20,000 ghosts grading granite. I rationalized efficiency's exigency, but efficiency without equity erodes. His voice frays, threadbare, eyes drifting to the window where workers haul scrap, twisted I-beams, once Autobahn dreams. The ratios you drew, 2.5 to 1 in the air, 3 to 1 on waves, not vengeance, velocity. You accelerated while we idled. Ball leans forward, smoke wreathing his face like a prosecutor's halo. Idled? Your memos begged for it. Relocate to the Reich's redoubt, Austria's Alps. But Hitler hoarded the heartland, faith's folly. He stubs the cigarette, grinding it to ghost, and slides a final dossier. Speer's own pleas, yellowed appeals to evacuate industries east. Forrestal's reading these in D.C. Lesson 1, Centralized Command, Decentralized Capacity. Nitze's pen scratches softly, scratch, scratch, capturing the concession. Equities erosion 20K Dora dead. Velocity, US Axel unchow. The room warms with the rising sun, light probing corners like interrogators' lamps, illuminating moats as if souls adrift. Outside, a truck convoy rumbles, vroom grind, allied haulers laden with typewriters not torpedoes, the hum of hammers nailing normalcy. Folly. The word fits, but the pivot her Speer, when did the architect become the auditor? The moment the spans sagged. Speer pauses, silence blooming thick as fog over the moat. His fingers interlace, knuckles paling, a span bridging guilt's gulf. Sagged, Berlin, January 45. The Chancellery, half-shelled, my office a crater's desk. I tallied the final figures. Luftwaffe at 10% strength, panzers rusting in rail yards. The Führer demanded total mobilization, children to the lines. I refused, drafted the scorched earth countermand, spare the factories for the peace. Treason's tallies. A faint smile, bitter as ersatz. You see, even in defeat, I audited for the aftermath. The aftermath. Nitze's mind leaps. Cables to Truman, blueprints for Bretton Woods, dollars as deterrence, production as pact. Cold War's calculus, outbuild or outflank, he nods, pen stilling. Aftermath. The true terrain. Your Reich collapsed not to bayonets but to bottlenecks. Ours endures on engines, mass, not messiahs. The clock chimes 10, bells tolling like clearance signals. Galbraith caps the flask, Ball gathers the transcripts murmuring, endures, till the next ledger. Speer rises slowly, as if testing a new gravity. Next, pray it's audited sooner. His gaze lingers on Nitze, a parting plumb, measuring the man who measured him. You sought patterns, Herr Nitze. Here, the pattern of power is persistence. Build not for the battle, but the bridge beyond. Nitze stands, offering no hand, courtesy's close, not camaraderie. Beyond, we'll ink it so. The guards materialize at the door, rifles slung but presence ponderous. Speer turns, footsteps echoing clop-clop down the marble veins, swallowed by the hall's maw. No chains clink, his myth departs on foot, hollow but ambulatory. Nitze walks the silent halls alone, notebook under arm, the weight of weeks in its warp. Portraits gaze down, Prussian ghosts uncomprehending, while dust sifts from cornices like fallout. The air cools, sea scent sharpening, footsteps rebound off stone, a solitary cadence, patterns procured. Now the projection. He pauses at a lancet window, overlooking the moat. Gulls skim the surface, indifferent auditors. Below, trucks idle, engines purring, hum-hum, freight for Frankfurt's rebuild, not its rubble. Galbraith catches up, pipe relit, smoke trailing like a contrail. He's gone, Paul, to Ashcan or worse, Luxembourg's luxury suite for war criminals. The economist's tone lightens the load, but his eyes hold the heft. Your report? It'll be gospel. NSC 68 spine. Ball joins from a side passage, briefcase swinging. Gospel with graphs. Forrestal's already wiring. Nitze's numbers. Blueprint the bomb shelter. Soviets at 50% our steel. We double down on Detroit. Nitze nods. Resuming the descent, spiral stair creaking under trio's tread. Bomb shelter? No. Arsenal. The courtyard opens. Sun high now, glinting off jeeps, a reel projector unspooling newsreels for the crews. Grainy footage of Iwo's flags, Berlin's banners furled. The whir click of the projector punctuates the air, frames flickering. Factories in overdrive, workers' faces alight not with fervor, but function. They climb into the jeep, engine coughing to life, sputter roar, gravel spitting under tires. Nitze lights a final cigarette, ember flaring against the blue, smoke whipping back in the slipstream. The castle recedes, turrets shrinking to teeth on the skyline. Pines blur past, bomb craters filling with wildflowers, nature's indifferent audit. Nitze at the scarred desk, lamp pooling amber, the report unfurling. United States Strategic Bombing Survey, European Theater. Interrogation, Speer A. Findings. German production peaked 43 at 120% capacity via dispersal labor coercion. Collapsed 44 on fuel ratio deficits. U.S. advantage, decentralized industry, 231 output multiples. Recommendation, post-war doctrine, prioritize industrial resilience, mass production as mutual deterrent. The pen's last scratch seals it, ink drying like a treaty's flourish. Galbraith lounges opposite, flask shared. Deterrent, elegant. Stalin reads this, he builds bunkers, we build Boeings. Ball paces, cable in hand. Forrestal, report en route DC, shape the shadows. The cold ones creeping, Potsdam's partitions already partitioning the pie. Nitze folds the pages, sealing the envelope with wax, red as warning, shadows shaped by spans. He steps to the window, dusk bruising the sea, trucks convoying south, hum of hubs turning, the sound of a world rewired. Cigarette smoke lingers, a veil over the vista, unspoken guilt, unyielding grain. The jeep hurtles toward Hamburg's haze, headlights probing the dark like bombers' beams. Stars prick the canopy, more vast than V2 arcs. Nitze's mind drifts, Speer in transit, ledgerless, myth moth-eaten. The Reich's ruins repurposed, factories for Fords, not Fockeys. The superweapon, not uranium, but unions. Not blitz, but belts. In a Luxembourg cell, blocks away in time, Speer stares at bars, Kaput's cage, fingers sketching invisible elevations. Outbuilt, he concedes to the silence. The echo replies, and outlasted. Empires don't collapse when they're defeated. They collapse when they're outbuilt. If you believe history's greatest battles are fought in the mind, subscribe for more untold World War II revelations.